What's up and welcome to the Level Health Podcast. We've got Josh Smith on the show today. Josh is a sports nutritionist, mentor, and the founder of Fortitude Nutrition Coaching. In this episode, we're talking about the role that discipline plays in nutrition and fitness. Big thanks to Josh for coming on our show. You can check out his Instagram at hero.nutrition.mentoring or his website, heronutritionmentoring.com. We'll have both of those linked in the description below. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Josh, if you don't mind, can you talk a bit about Fortitude's mission, and then kind of just lead us into where how you got started in this field, basically?
Yeah, for sure. Dude, thanks first and foremost for having me on the show as well. It's a massive honor to talk about these things, and I guess for you to be interested in what I have to offer as well. So Fortitude, we essentially want to help guide our clients on what we call their hero's journey, and essentially become the best version of themselves, or become that person they really desire to become, and ultimately live in alignment with their values and what's truly important to them as well. And one of our big sayings is that we change lives, not just bodies. So we don't just focus on physique, like, fat loss or muscle gain or performance. We look at, really getting deep into a client's why and their values, and making sure that their goals and actions do align with those, because we know how fulfilling that can be for them, but also, selfishly for us as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, saying that lives, not just bodies, I think that's kind of like the inevitable result of some introspection as a fitness professional, because you can get people that six pack, things like that. And that's, to be honest, is quite easy. But finding that those deeper things, those deeper drivers, I think honestly is what holds people back, because it does take some prying, it takes some finesse, I would say.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes it's quite tricky to help our clients with these deeper goals if they're not quite aware of them, or they're not even quite aware that that's what a nutritionist can do. And that's one of the barriers that we do face, is that when people don't quite know what a nutritionist can do, they just think that we help with fat loss, and we're going to set them some macros and a meal plan as well. But that's not what we do at all. We, again, like I said, we want to try and get clear on what their goals and values are first and foremost, and then try and find ways that suit that person to help them achieve that as well. And I think another thing that we try and do, and I'm trying to, I guess, promote this a bit more, is that we help people go from where they are now at their struggles, get them to a point where they're successful, but also to the point where they're self-sufficient. So they don't actually need to work with the coach anymore. They've got to that point where they're really confident in their choices, that they can enjoy themselves socially, and they can, make physical progress as well. But they know what they're doing, and they know how to maintain those results for the rest of their life. Because I would rather a client just choose to work with me and stick around because they want to work with me, rather than need to work with me. So again, we're all about really empowering our clients by that value-aligned life, but also knowing that they know that they can do it on their own.
Would you say that that trend? I hadn't really thought about this in this context, but would you say that transition from successful to sustainable is kind of the biggest shortcoming, or a big shortcoming in the industry currently? Because, like we said, we can take people through a 12-week challenge and make them temporarily weigh less or temporarily lift more weight, but that transition to the sustainable, the empowered mindset, is that a big shortcoming?
Yeah, for sure. If we use the example of weight loss, people don't have a weight loss problem; they have a weight loss maintenance problem, and it's usually because they either try to change too many things all at once, or the approach just doesn't fit them. They're trying an approach that cuts out the things that they really enjoy, or they're trying to do things they don't enjoy, or they're just following a plan rather than having any involvement either.
And how did you come to realize that this was something that you, right out the bat, as you got into this industry, realized was something you wanted to focus on? Or what led you to making this realization that a more comprehensive approach is really needed?
I've always been fascinated with psychology ever since I was at university, studying to be a teacher. I think there was one kind of lecture or one topic in particular that really stood out to me, of essentially there's a reason behind every behavior, there's a reason behind everything that we do. And I was like, that really, it was a very memorable moment for me. And then when I got into coaching, I was lucky enough to be very interested And I really like the precision nutrition approach to coaching as well. So that was one of the first courses I did, and I really liked their approach to behavior change. And then I kept kind of diving into the behavior change side of things as well.
Mm.
And then I wasn't a massive reader a couple of years ago, but one of the books that I did read at the time and stood out to me was a book called Drive by what's his name? Daniel Pink, I think it is, about like motivation. And one of the things he mentioned was self-determination theory. So competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And it's actually the three pillars that we have at FNC of choice, choice, connection, and education as well. So like, I was fascinated with self-determination theory, and then that made a lot of sense as to why people follow through with things or why they don't as well, and really making sure that we tailor our approach to our clients in regards to not only the goal but also the actions they need to do to get the goal. Because people have a goal, but they also need to want to do the behaviors in order to get that goal as well. So I think it's a roundabout way of saying, like, I was very interested in behavior change from an early like professional career, but even like in my teaching profession. And then that compared with obviously being a teacher for 7 years and trying to understand, why kids do what they do, understanding how their family lives and, what happens before they get to school is going to impact their behaviors that day. I guess that really laid a foundation for, I guess, my approach to coaching as well.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Did you actually work as a teacher? But for 7 years, I guess you're able to kind of have a pretty big sample population. What year did you teach? Were you teaching young kids or?
Yeah, so I taught for 7 years. I was a PE teacher, so like physical education teacher. I was trained as that, so I did that for 2 years. But then for 5 years, I taught in special education, and the ages range from I think like 12 to 18. So
Was that just a crash course in empathy for you, like learning to connect with people of all different?
Yeah, patience and empathy.
Yeah.
Big time. Like I'm very grateful for my time, being a teacher because of that, again, that foundation and that skill set that I've been able to carry over into not only coaching but just like other areas of my life as well. But also understanding like different teaching and learning styles was really helpful as well. And I think that comes across in, I guess, how we deliver our messages at FNC, and even like through hero mentoring, that we try and just deliver information in various ways, even multiple times, said slightly differently, because it's going to stick and land with certain people in a different way.
Can you dig into that just a little bit more, the different teaching and learning styles? Because I think that kind of goes into our next topic that I really wanted to focus on, that, hashtag more discipline approach, because that sledgehammer right there. But kind of the more finesse side is learning how to communicate people and how they'll receive it best. So can you kind of go into that just a little bit?
Yeah, like, so some people learn better through like visual representations, so like, let's say, infographics or images. Some people would learn better by reading. Some people learn better by hearing things as well. So that's why, like, you could say this, like, let's say to like content creation or sending a resource to a client, if you can deliver it in 3 different platforms, you're increasing the chance of them actually absorbing it, especially if you can then target the one that suits them best. If we then look at training, then someone's obviously going to learn by doing and by moving their body to get a better feeling for it. Whereas some people get a better understanding if you actually just explain it to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that being hands-on and one-on-one or just in-person trainer, you really kind of learn that people respond differently. But is that something that you kind of piece out in the very beginning when you're having a consultation or something? Or are there any questions or any kind of tactics that you learn what's best for them? Because I'm not sure if everybody knows how they best learn, really. I think we kind of just go through it, whatever we get exposed to.
Yeah, I think like we can ask it in that initial consult of like, what are your strengths and how do you learn best? But even along the way, because even when we do our email or app-based check-ins every week at FNC, like we'll type our notes up and we'll also like record a little video of us explaining it. And some of our clients, they'll really respond quite well and even like reply saying like, thanks so much for that video. It made a lot of sense. Where some would prefer just to read it, and then we get a better picture of like who enjoys what sources of feedback as well.
And you kind of touched on it already, but so this all should inform content creation as well, understanding those kinds of different modalities.
Yeah, exactly right. So, you can use the same piece of content in a few different ways. So the way that I typically do it is I'll write my idea out and I'll talk about it on my story one day. The week after, it will either go out as a reel or as a like infograph or something. And then maybe a month later, I'll change the format to like from a carousel to a reel or from a reel to a carousel or something like that. And the cool thing is not many people realize I do it. But also it helps different types of learners and or the same message said a little bit differently again, like I said earlier, it just sticks that second time or even that third time.
Yeah, I'd love to do a podcast sometime entirely on content creation. In fact, I wrote that on my list to find somebody soon, because that's a whole nother ball game that I think, like you mentioned, repurposing content. I think that we tend to overthink the approach, and something as simple as retooling it for something different can save a heck of a lot of pain. But I kind of got a little sidetracked there, but I think that was important to touch on. So really the point of contention that I see a lot in the industry coming from fitness and nutrition professionals is that hashtag that you use, the hashtag more disciplined approach, to just get it done. You don't want it bad enough, that kind of approach. And to be honest, I thought that was somewhat waning from the industry, fortunately, kind of fading away, but I don't think that it is. I think we just get into these silos where we start to see good and we ignore all the bad out there. But can you just kind of describe what this approach is and why it's been used for so long?
Yeah, I think it's come back into popularity thanks to the likes of like Jocko Willink and David Goggins as well. Like obviously they work for a certain type of person, but I'm not massive fans of this message in particular. And typically the example that we use is like, that they use is don't rely on motivation, just be disciplined instead. Okay. And like, if you're not motivated to eat veggies, like still do it, just be disciplined. If you're not motivated to go to the gym, you just still got to go. If you're not motivated to get your steps in, you've just got to go still, right? And like, I agree that there needs to be a level of discipline in order for someone to achieve a certain goal, right? But what they're saying is that motivation doesn't matter. And this just kind of stands out as a massive red flag that they actually don't know what they're talking about in regards to motivation, because motivation actually is important. It's just the source of motivation that matters the most, right? So it used to be like more like intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, but now it's more classed as like controlled or autonomous motivation. So controlled would be like, I have to do this, I must do this. That's more of that extrinsic type of motivation. Like my coach said I have to do this, or my nutritionist said I have to eat these vegetables, kind of thing. And those types of that source of motivation is linked to poorer psychological well-being and also poorer outcomes and poorer performance, right? What we want to try and do is actually help our clients tap into that autonomous type of motivation. So it's intrinsic, it's congruent to the person they want to become. Like I mentioned before, that's what we do at FNC as well. But it's also aligned with their values and their inherent satisfaction. So they're doing things because they want to, okay? And it's really part of who they are and part of their identity as well. And that's linked to more positive outcomes, more like positive performance, and also like greater psychological well-being as well.
And I wonder how much, of course, there's that survivorship bias component where we're highlighting the people that made it through our grueling programs and approach. But I'm just curious as to like, what is it that we gravitate to that? Is there something intrinsic within this sphere that we want, that, we kind of are intrigued by that approach? Is it just kind of a widespread human behavior?
I don't know. I'd say like it means if I follow through and do something, then I'm being successful, right? Maybe that's where they get that sense of like, I would even say short-lived satisfaction from following through, right? But the issue is, and this is what I've written about quite a lot recently, is that discipline is one thing, but you need to be disciplined in the right direction. Otherwise, it's a disaster. So what if someone is they aren't motivated to do a certain thing? Let's say, for example, to change their physique, right? They have set this goal of like, I want to have a lean physique. And in order to do that, I must, go to the gym, I must get my steps in, I must track my calories. Okay. But let's say this person hasn't actually done the values-based work. They're not quite self-aware of what's true, what's most important to them. they could be actually moving away from what's important to them. They could be sacrificing the things that are important to them, like their social and emotional health and their connections and their relationships and their relationship with food as well. They could be moving down the complete wrong path. And that's where I think discipline is dangerous if you aren't going in the right direction as well. And this is, it's even like if you chase the wrong goals, it's a lose-lose situation. Right. And I see this quite a lot with people of like that, again, let's say they set this goal of to change their physique. And if they don't succeed, they feel like a failure, right? They're low self-esteem. But if they do succeed and it wasn't truly important to them, again, there's that short-term satisfaction, but it's not very fulfilling and they're no longer happy. So you've got two situations even down that path. One, they go, I've got to go harder, I've got to change my physique even more. Or they just go like, I wasted all that time and energy to pursue a goal that wasn't even important. And I've also ruined my relationships with people, my connections. I've given up the things that meant the most to me. Again, like it's just a bit of a disaster if you just say like, be more disciplined. I'm like, how about we actually take the time to figure out what's important for this person and then help them create goals and actions that help them live that value-aligned life. And I guess essentially their best life.
Would you say that you mentioned this a little bit already with the being associated with poor psychological outcomes long term and everything like that? But would you say I think we tend to think that the worst that's going to happen is it's going to be a not sustainable approach. But you, like I said, you already touched on this. Is there a much deeper potential issue in this, or is it just that we won't lose weight long term?
Yeah, I think it's not even that the results are not sustainable. I think it's that the results weren't actually worth it for this person. Like it's not actually leading them to have a fulfilling life.
Yeah, it's like you're
Because
chasing a
they
carrot.
haven't taken the time to think. Yeah, they haven't had the time to think about why their goal is important to them. Like, where has this goal come from? Is it from like social norms? Is it from chasing external validation or fear and insecurity? Sorry, like, we don't want to chase goals in that direction. We want to think about, okay, who do I want to become? What's like, how do I want to think, act, and feel differently? What does life look like on the other side of this goal? And again, what are my values and how can I live in alignment with those values?
Yeah, I was saying like it's like we're chasing a carrot, and I've been there. I did the whole physique focused entirely all the way up to doing a show, and then I realized, oh, actually, you know what? This wasn't the part that I enjoyed. The stepping on stage wasn't the part that I enjoyed. It was the training component. So can I get that same satisfaction somewhere else? But like again, you're just chasing something that you don't even realize. So I've recently made within the last couple of years a concerted effort to work more with the aging population, seniors. So I get a little bit less of this, but I wanted to ask you, how has social media impacted this? Are people coming to you with these absolutely, I want to say outlandish because everybody can achieve great physiques or, what transformations, whatever it is they want. But it definitely seems like there are the outliers that are shoved to the forefront of social media. So how are you seeing that this landscape kind of evolving as social media infiltrates everything?
Yeah, it just adds back to what I was saying before about those social norms. So someone could be chasing the wrong goal for a reason that they think that that's what is normal or that is what is accepted by society as well. And it's typically health and fitness professionals that have those health and fitness like influencers that have those physiques that people are chasing. So they think, okay, cool, if I want to improve my health, I need to improve my physique and look like that and eat like that and track my calories and give up my social or even do a physique show. I'm like, well, actually, there's more to health than just the physical health, but there's also more to improving your like physical health than just changing your body and getting ridiculously shredded.
Of course. And I think that this kind of where the rubber meets the road is where I wanted to shift to next is how do you begin to help instill these behavior change aspects of behavior change? And of course, it then starts with, identifying values and things like that. And what are the goals that they have? But how do you actually start to put that together?
Yeah, so I guess as a professional, there's probably two things you can do. One of them is use the goal hierarchy. So, a lot of clients would come to us with intermediate goals of like improve physique, improve performance, even improve health. But we want to tap into the highest level of that goal hierarchy, which is referred to as superordinate goals, but I like to call it the anchor goal. It's just a little bit less nerdy. It's the anchor that everything kind of ties into, or maybe like even your compass. So, for me, it's like my 4 Ps of like passion, purpose, potential, and presence. But for someone else, it could be, confidence or setting a good example for the family. And that way you can then break it down into many different intermediate goals. So many roads lead to Rome. But then we can break down those intermediate goals into what's referred to as subordinate goals, but I just call it action goals. So the actions they can interact with daily that filter up to the intermediate goals and then into these anchor-based goals as well. If we can do that with our clients, it's going to increase like motivation again, meaning, commitment, resilience. They can then look long term. And if they slip up, they can again like course correct and keep moving forwards. And with those multiple different actions and intermediate goals, it just gives them a bit more hope that they can still become this person they want to become, because there's multiple pathways to success as well.
And tricking our little monkey brains into developing self-efficacy by creating those small wins along the way. I like the calling it an anchor goal instead of a superordinate goal. Besides the fact that superordinate means nothing to most people, the anchor is, again, it's that most deep level that you're driving towards, or being pulled towards, hopefully. In a little bit more of a painless way. But so what are some soft skills to master as a fitness and nutrition professional walking people through this process?
Just even in general, like number one is empathy, right? So learning to like have a warm, positive regard for our clients and trying to accurately understand where they're coming from, but demonstrating that accurate understanding as well. Like I would say it is the most important soft skill that you can have as a health professional. Even there's been some studies done and some research done, even in addiction, that empathy is the single greatest determining factor of success in addiction behavior change as well. When coaches have when coaches have high empathy, there's less chance of relapse, there's less resistance to change, clients are more likely to change, and they're more likely to kind of stick to the course of let's say the program or the process as well. And when coaches have low interpersonal skills, including things like low empathy, it can actually increase the rate of relapse by 2 to 4 times. And this is and I think the best example I can use is that there was a study done where low empathy coaches was worse than having no coach or no therapist at all. So imagine being such a poor coach because you had no empathy or low empathy, that you were worse than when that client has no coach at all. Like, that's pretty sad.
No, that's absolutely. I think that should have almost been intuitive, because I mean, how many I consider it like a net positive, net negative. Like, if every interaction that I have with somebody as a fitness professional, I want to be a net negative. Every relationship I have from a professional side, I want to be a net negative. I could not imagine walking through my professional career and being a net negative. Am I saying net negative the whole time? No, I meant net positive. I think you do what I meant. So yeah, I could not imagine being a net negative in my client's life. Not to mention, it's a business, they're paying you for services, like you're not fulfilling your component, but just on a little bit more of like a metaphysical, existential level, like being a negative in people's life, that's really an unfortunate place to be in, I think.
Yeah, and then we look at, say, the opposite of empathy would be tough love. And those coaches that have tough love, they have poor outcomes with their clients, poorer job satisfaction, and increased rate of burnout. So for you and for the client, it's important to veer away from tough love. But again, we said, like survivorship bias, there's a very small percentage of the population that benefit from that, but it's not most of our clients. So it's worth working on empathy instead. And that leads to better outcomes, better client experience, a greater understanding of our clients, greater connections, and greater job satisfaction. So if we want to be in this job for a long time, it's worth being empathetic. So that's like number one, empathy. Also, like respecting your client's autonomy. So rather than telling them what to do, it's asking them, what do you want to do? It might be presenting them with options. So if a client is starting out and they're a beginner, it could be, do you want to start with protein at breakfast, adding 2 serves of fruit, drinking more water, or eating more veg? But it's not, hey, we're starting with this. It's like, which one do you want to go with? And what ideas do you have? Or like, would you like me to share some ideas with you? So respecting autonomy is really, really important. And again, it goes back to like self-determination theory, and even what I might even talk about a little bit later on is like the golden behavior criteria as well, that we use at FNC, and that I talk about a lot at Hero as well.
You can go ahead and go into that now if you'd like. I had a question, but it's kind of a little bit of a sidetrack. So if you want to hit it, go for it.
Yeah, so the golden behavior criteria is essentially like it's a bit of a Venn diagram, right? So all three areas need to be ticked off for a behavior to be effective, right? And worth pursuing. So the client has to be able to do it. So they can do it, so competence. They have to want to do it, so autonomy, and it has to have a positive impact on all areas of their life, right? Or at least a net positive. Okay, so it's going to get the results, but not come at a trade-off of everything else. So if a client can't do something, they won't feel very motivated to do it, okay, because they don't have the skills or the time or the circumstances. If they don't want to do it, they won't do it. But it could get them results, but it could come at a trade-off of their social and emotional health as well. Or it may not really be worth it for their goals. Or, if we look at, someone tracking their calories, it could trigger some perfectionist tendencies, or they could take it a little bit too far. Or it may not be necessary either for their goals as well. So what we can try and do is, if a behavior doesn't fit that criteria, we just scale things or move them around to make sure that it does fit.
I think it's worth mentioning, what are the aspects of one client's life that you're looking at? You mentioned social and mental health and well-being. What are the other components that you're factoring into that equation?
So like the deep health perspectives, we're looking at, physical health, social health, emotional health, economic health, existential, environmental. But we really get to know our clients. Again, we talk about values, their circumstances, their lifestyle, what's important to them, their family, their career, their hobbies. We get to know all those things so that we can make sure that, like, obviously nutrition fits into that life. They're not fitting their life into nutrition. And one of the questions I've added in probably in the last, let's say, 6 months into my initial consult with clients is asking them, like, okay, what don't you want to give up? Like, what don't you want to cut out of your life? And let's say, for example, a client says, well, I want to be able to have lunch with my work friends every Thursday, and I want to go out for, a couple of beers with my mates every Saturday. Right, cool. We're going to keep those in, no matter what. We're keeping those in there, like your social and emotional health non-negotiables. So we're making sure we're helping this person make progress, but also factoring these things into their life as well. So they're not giving everything up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just I don't want to say the mark of like a responsible fitness and nutrition professional, but you have to be realistic. You have to realize that these people are still living their lives. And whether or not you pulling things out is going to reduce the ability for them to succeed, it's definitely going to make it harder for them than it needs to be. And working within the confines that they're presenting. So my question from earlier was, you mentioned some of the research in the field of addiction and recovery. Since we're obviously not looking at behavior change within fitness fitness and nutrition professional client interactions, it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anytime soon. What other fields do we pull from when we're looking to kind of broaden our understanding of this?
Yeah, let's say therapy and counseling and psychology. Look at a lot of those kind of areas. Grab some strategies, grab some insights into the coaching-client relationship in particular as well. But even if we think about, our clients don't just do things randomly, or the consequences aren't just as a result of their actions. It's usually based on their thoughts or their emotions that are based on an action, right? So let's say, for example, someone has a glass of champagne, and then they continue to have 2 bottles of champagne, right? It wasn't the glass of champagne that led to 2 bottles. It was their belief about the glass of champagne. So they go, oh, I've stuffed up my diet. I'm a failure. I may as well just have 2 bottles. So if we can challenge that belief instead, that's like, rather than removing the glass of champagne, we just change how the person feels about that glass of champagne, and it's going to get rid of those consequences. So that's from I believe it's rational emotive behavioral therapy. We can grab things from acceptance and commitment therapy as well. We can grab things from cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's plenty of activities and I guess ways to coach people that we can be borrowed from those areas. Because again, like one thing I've been really passionate about for the last couple of months is that coaching health and fitness isn't about health and fitness. It's about people first. So just because you're passionate about nutrition or training doesn't mean you should be a coach. You should be passionate about people and helping people solve problems, because it's not about nutrition or training. It's about the person first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole client-centered approach is starting to seem like kind of like on repeat, saying that, but it really is the crux of the entire shift that I feel, and I know many other people feel, needs to happen in the fitness space, and it is happening, of course. But this cultural thing is going to take time, and we're fighting uphill with social media exploding and everything like that. But so kind of tied in with this, this is just another side tangent, but how kind of tied in with this whole behavior change approach and working with clients in this is inevitably you're going to have people that may not be entirely forthcoming with you, or it appears that way. So how do you set the tone as a fitness and nutrition professional to allow that really honest and forward communication?
Yeah, so we need to, I guess, provide an environment where the client can be forthcoming. They can feel accepted and like we're going to listen to them and understand them and have unconditional positive regard. So that if they slip up, they know that we're not going to have a go at them and pounce on them. Like, and this is the thing that that kind of does my head in with the whole tough love and the whole I call my clients out on their shit approach. It's like the clients are hard enough on themselves as it is. They don't need someone else to do that, right? So we're the ones that like, okay, I need you to tell me how you feel, tell me what you've done, so that I can essentially help you. If I don't have this information, I can't help you to the best of my abilities. So it's, I guess, setting that expectation, but also setting that really warm and positive environment to know that, you know, they can be completely open and honest.
Yes, absolutely. Is there any way, any kind of strategies in the very beginning? I know that you, the unconditional positive regard, of course, but I think that many people still are hesitant coming to a professional because they've seen how it's been authoritative in the past, and it's this very prescriptive and I'm in charge kind of mindset, and you're having to overcome that a little bit. So is there any tricks, any tips that you utilize in that first meeting?
I think, like, just so that we don't either probably overwhelm the coaches, but also that, like, if a coach is just starting out to be this client-centered and warm and empathetic person, they've got to think about all these things they've got to do in these first consults. But I think a big part of it will be coming down to how you react to that first slip up, the first missed check-in, the first day the first weekend where they don't log their intake, the first weekend where they go on a bender. You know what I mean? How do you react to that as a coach? That's going to set the tone, because you could say during that first consult or check-in, tell me everything. Like, I want you to be open and honest. But if you then react poorly,
Yeah.
then you're not living by your standards. You're not following through on the expectation that's been set. So I think it's more through your actions and how you respond to things as a coach, especially when they're quite negative, and then we can try and reframe things or have a different spin on them as well. Like, so, we go, okay, this is a slip up. It's even like normalizing lapses as well, like saying like you are going to lapse at some point. Like, you're going to slip up, but we can use it as a lesson. So what happened? Why did it happen? Why do you want to change this behavior? And what can we do next time you're in a similar situation? So we learn from those things, but also show that you are a real person, especially through your social media, or even with how you communicate to clients. Like, I always tell my clients, I love beer and I love ice cream. Like, and I'll won't show myself being blind on social media, but like, I mean, I'll share like the beers that I enjoy and having ice cream, and that way the client knows that, okay, well, if he's having beer and ice cream, he won't go up at me for having beer and ice cream.
Yeah, it's almost something that you can't really bullshit, because like in that first meeting, almost inevitably they're going to be self-deprecating, they're going to be negative, they're going to say, I've always had this issue in the past, or I just can't have carbs, or whatever it is. And I think just right there, that initial interaction, just being, like you said, completely honest and forthcoming with them, I think it's kind of really a non-issue, because again, I was going to ask you exactly, letting them know you're a real person, and through your actions, and you're not making every thing that you post on social media about how good you are at being a fitness person or a nutrition person, and making it look like you're an actual real person.
Yeah. Yeah, like we did this post a little while ago of like the things that we struggle with as nutrition professionals, and it was really well received by our audience. They were like, thank you so much for showing that, like, nutritionists and dietitians don't have perfect diets, and like, well, no one has a perfect diet anyway, but especially like not us. Like, we're not robots.
We can be for a little bit. I mean, I look back to it, I was just straight up orthorexic, I'm sure, but it's not a fun place to be. And then it's the spirals of the binge eating because you slipped up a little bit. And I think that it might be helpful to have some of those extreme experiences in your past as a professional, so that you can kind of pull from those and relate to people a little bit more. But I mean, it takes a little bit of introspection and a little bit of thought, I think.
Yeah, and dude, this is like a lot of this job requires introspection as the coach and obviously of the client as well. Like, this is what, like, one of my biggest struggles is working with clients that don't do the inner work, that don't do the reflection, that give the one answer responses to check-ins. They don't know why they want to achieve their goals. Like, they're the clients that they just don't get the best results. The clients that get the best results know why they want to change. They have a deep why, and they reflect on the behaviors and why they do things. They want to learn why they do things, and they want to learn how to change them as well.
Yeah, that's kind of the dream client. I think back in my younger years as a professional, I would have said that the do whatever I say client would be my ideal client, but that's definitely shifted quite some time ago. But it's always good to reflect on that. So, and a little bit of like my nerdy science side of things, I want to ask you, what are some unanswered questions in this field of research? I'm sure there are a ton, but if you could just snap your fingers and have some studies done, what would you want to look into?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, oh, I would love to do a little bit more research or get more research done on the impact that video consultations would have compared to email-based check-ins. Um, I know anecdotally how powerful they are, and I know, like, from the conversations I have with the people that I mentor and other coaches at FNC, how much deeper we can get through video consults, or even consults in general that are, you know, client-centered. We're asking open-ended questions. We're asking questions for deeper understanding. We're empowering our clients rather than telling them what to do. I would love to see what the research is like on outcomes and client satisfaction and client experience compared to just when a client answers the email check-in, so answers the check-in form, and then a coach gives the response or a Loom video back. Like, there's no collaboration. I would love to see a study done on that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I'm sure that I don't know how many industries have that kind of separation where we do have the video check-ins, but we also have just email check-ins. But I think it would be interesting, and it certainly is something that needs to be done with the way the world is now. Like, so much of our interaction is coming through a computer screen. So how much are we missing from the in-person meetings, and then how much are we missing with the emails that you could get from the video calls? But yeah, like you said, anecdotally, I'm sure that it's a massive impact. But so kind of to wrap things up, Josh, would you mind just explaining what you are doing with the FNC and your team members over there and everything like that, and then any projects or anything you want to send people to?
Yeah. So I've got two businesses now. So one of them is FNC, so Fortitude Nutrition Coaching, and that's where we focus on coaching our clients, again, to improve their lives, not just their body. So it could be improving their physical health, their relationship with food, their mindset around food, performance for athletes as well, or even just like weekend warriors. So that's one side of the business. And then my other business is called Hero Nutrition Mentoring, and that is where I work with coaches and nutrition and health professionals to become client-centered coaches, to work on their soft skills, to work on running an online business, and also to work on content creation as well.
Do you is it like a one-on-one, conversations? Do you have just educational materials as well? Do you have like kind of different tiers?
Yeah, so it's just one-on-one mentoring. So it's a 3-month minimum mentorship, and we have like fortnightly video calls. And then there's also a bunch of resources as well, inside what, like, we call it our base camp, our Hero Academy base camp. So there's soft skills videos. There's things on like content creation frameworks and activities. There's like systems that I recommend and use. There's a bit of a community element as well.
That's awesome. We'll make sure to link to all of that because I think that's a huge resource that's going to be just invaluable in the future. And I hope more and more people and more, people with the ability to help others in this field do so very soon. So it was great talking with you today, Josh, and I'll talk to you again sometime soon, man.